Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gaming. I'm next to the comms, of course, Justin. Take two this time. Some recording issues, so let's see if it works this time.
So minor problems, minor problems.
Minor, minor problem, minor problems. But anyways, some interesting news in the games industry this week. Well, I guess if you're into PlayStation anyway, because State of Play just came out and a bunch of interesting stuff got revealed, shown off, talked about. And yeah, we got a list, so let's just kind of go down them. I always started these shows with my opinion, so let's throw it over to Justin and talk about his stuff first. And yeah.
So in the other recording, we actually had an interesting, funny bit going on with Pragmata, but yeah, well, that got ruined because I actually remember the name this time. But yeah, that was the first game that caught my eye, and the only real one that actually really caught my eye. Um, to me, it's interesting because of the fact that like it's more or less feels like a completely fresh new series type of thing. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. But I don't
Yeah.
know. It caught my eye visually and everything. Like everything about it caught my eye about it. So
It definitely feels like one of those experience type games. Not in the sense
yeah,
of like there's no gameplay there, but in the sense of like there's some surreal stuff in there. Like I
yeah.
was joking with him in the previous recording. When I first saw the thing showed off, it felt like a Kojima game with just like the weird imagery they were
It's
going
just
with and
yeah. There's
everything.
so much going on. Actually, when I really think about it, it feels like a little bit kind of like what's going on with Zenless when it comes to you being inside a hollow with like weird shit going on. It feels that like that kind of energy. Like there's just something happened to the world and it's all weird now.
Yep, and you're just in it as a dude in a spacesuit with a mech child or
I want to
mech.
say it just a normal child.
No, I
Something.
think it's a mech child. I think she was revealed to be like part robot or something like that.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Which doesn't add to the surrealness, doesn't it? But anyways, on that note, we do actually have an official demo for PS5 that's out now, so if you want to play that early, you can go on and see if you like it or not. As for the release date, April 24th of this year, so official date finally after I think several years of being shown off, so be interesting to see what happens. Anyways, moving on. Anything else catch your eye?
There was Star Wars, the new Star Wars racing game got announced and properly teased.
Mm-hmm. Last time, like I said in the previous recording, the last time we had a big pod racer game of any kind was back in the PS2 era, and best I'm aware, that was received fairly well. I have it actually somewhere in my collection, I think. Like played it back in the day. Really fun. So the idea of making like a modern, almost Forza-like version of pod racing with modern graphics and destruction mechanics and da 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 da, it feels like just a slam dunk as far as things are concerned. I think that'll go over really well in the racing scene, personally, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Release date for that has not been confirmed entirely. We know that it's coming out this year. At least it's coming 2026, but that's all we know. So expect it sometime this year. My guess is because they haven't confirmed an official date, expected like the later half. So we're talking like November, December, October-ish maybe. But that's just my guess. Anywho's,
Yep.
anything else?
Not really.
All right, we'll just go down my list then, because
Yep.
you kind of were basically rattling off my list, so I'd have to go through those two at least.
Hmm.
And yeah, let's just start off with this one right here, which is Beast of Reincarnation. That's kind of where we ended the recording last time, actually. This is a really interesting title as far as everything is concerned, because Beast of Reincarnation comes from us to the same people that make all the Pokemon games, i.e. Game Freak. And that is really interesting, because as far as I know, Game Freak doesn't do any games beyond the Pokemon games. So the idea of them going off and doing their own thing with Sony instead of, continuing to make the Pokemon games, which as far as I know they still are, they're just doing their own thing at the moment as well, will be really interesting, because like I said, Pokemon games are usually known for their cartoony graphics and, I don't want to say repetitive formulas, but if you played a Pokemon game, you know what the
Yeah, you
shtick
know
is.
what it is.
Yeah, yeah, but this is like we're dealing with some very like almost Japanese aesthetics by the look of things. We got a wolf that maybe mutates, maybe doesn't. It's kind of weird. The graphics are interesting. It almost feels like somewhere between a Neo and a Souls game. Well, Souls games play like Neo. There are Souls games, so. But it'll be interesting, like I said, to see how this ends up playing out. Will this be a proof of concept for them to come back to Nintendo and be like, hey, let us do more with the Pokemon license? Because we do know Nintendo can be very protective of that IP, so who knows? Maybe it'll be the proof of concept they need to, if not move beyond Pokemon and do other games for Nintendo beyond just Pokemon, because I doubt they're going to give up that money printer. to at the very least, do something more experimentative perhaps with Pokemon. Maybe do something more out of the box. Who knows? But yeah, that's interesting to see what happens. Official date for that is August 4th, so I will definitely probably be picking that up when it comes out, just to see how it ends up turning out. But yeah, that's Beast of Reincarnation. Next up on our list is a more classic title, Rayman, the 30th anniversary. So if you're a fan of the original Rayman game, that's, I think, being remastered somewhere. And digital version is actually out right now, so if you're interested in getting that on digital platform, at the very least as far as PlayStation is concerned, it might be other places, I don't know, I haven't checked, then you're free to do that. That has a whole bunch of content, including like a documentary with the developers of Rayman, going over the early days, which it'll be interesting if you're especially into the early days of Ubisoft, so interesting stuff to talk about there, especially considering all that's happening with Ubisoft now. I believe Rayman is classified as one of their other brands, if you know what I mean.
You know.
But yeah, so that exists. Digital Museum as well, which, interesting stuff all around. Good if you're a Rayman fan. Not much to say on that one as far as I'm concerned. Let's just go to the very end of the presentation, and actually no, let's jump to the very beginning of the presentation. Talk about Kena, Scars of Casmora. I think I'm saying that right. Really interesting concept, considering the last Kena game we got was Bridge of Spirits, and I think that was Xbox, the original, no, not the original Xbox, but like Xbox Series X time, or Xbox Series, like whatever, PS4 time, effectively, I think. And I never played it, but I don't think anyone had anything too bad to say about it. And as far as we can tell, the next one looks to be far more ambitious, even by their own admission. It looks to be a much more almost open area type game, not open world fully, but like open area type game. Older Kena spirit companions are going to be in the thing. It's really interesting. I feel like it's going to be a much bigger, bolder game, and maybe it'll get me into finally playing Kena. I always debate about playing the game, so I guess I'm going to have to finally get around to playing the games now. No official release date for that beyond 2026 for PS5 and PC, so look out for that if you're a Kena fan, I guess. Anyways, going very to the end of the presentation, God of War Trilogy Remake is a thing, which is interesting. Actually, no, let's start off by saying that there is also a game called Sons of Sparta, a side-scroller type game, which seems to cover Kratos' origins. That's out now, actually, as well, so if you want that, go get it. But they use this to kind of tide us over with the fact that, again, the trilogy is being remade, and they actually had the original VA of Kratos come back to actually reveal all of this, and he does, again, voice work for the Sons of Sparta game. Which is interesting, because like I said, this is not a remaster, this is a remake. So, generally in gaming terms, that's a much bigger endeavor than just remaster. Remaster can obviously be something as simple as just, or not obviously, it can just be something as simple as, hey...
Texture changes.
Yeah, texture changes. That's about it, really.
Yeah, and that's basically what it was for like Halo Combat Evolved. Like Anniversary was just more or less texture changes. Sometimes they'll do outright full-on changes for an Anniversary, but like a lot of the time it can be just something super simple.
Yeah, generally when you hear the words remaster, expect nothing more than perhaps a texture upgrade, but the fact that they're doing a full remake in gaming terms is usually a much bigger undertaking. This usually means a whole rehaul of the game, possibly added content. The fact they're bringing the original VA of Kratos back to do this implies that they very well likely may. Especially considering the idea of them possibly not only making it in modern graphics, which would be really freaking cool if they did. Imagine God of War, like, Ragnarok graphics in, like, God of War 3. The brutality alone would be nuts. Finally, I get to poke out Zeus's eyes in high definition.
High definition.
Poseidon, excuse me. It's been a while since I've gone through the Greek pantheon. But yeah, that would be really interesting. And like I said, obviously also remakes generally tend to come with perhaps revamping of the story. Now, I'm not saying they're going to redo the story completely, but they might, while keeping 99% of it the same, probably perhaps tie in more of what ends up going on in, say, 2019, 2018, whenever the new God of War came out, and then Ragnarok that came after. So maybe we'll get more Easter eggs on that, maybe some conference of the other, pantheons or something like that. Like I said, a remake opens up the door for them to have a lot more connective tissue between the later games and the trilogy, which again is really interesting. Not that the trilogy itself didn't have a bit of connective thread that they kind of pulled on to justify the later trilogies, but again, hey, no, never hurts to have more, right?
Nope.
No actual release date of when that's happening. We don't even have a year. They just said it's in development, which, hey, that's enough for me, if I'm being honest for now. But yeah, expect that within the next, let's say several years, 2, 3 years, let's say, minimum. But yeah, so that's a thing. And like I said, there's a side-scrolling game that covers Kratos' origins, Sons of Sparta, out right now. So if you're a fan of God of War and you're a fan of side-scrollers, go play that. I may actually end up playing it at some point. I do tend to like side-scrollers. So yeah, we'll see. Let's see here. Talked about Kenna, talked about this, talked about, oh, right. Marathon. Can't do a Sony presentation without talking about the elephant in the room as far as our channel is concerned, which is the Bungie stuff. So, if you didn't see the presentation and you're hoping for me to give good news about a Destiny 3 release,
No.
sorry. No. Don't. Trust me, I'm as disappointed as you are. Especially on the lack of communication. But we're not here to talk about Destiny at the moment. For the moment.
At the moment.
Let's talk Marathon. Marathon has been, like I said, shown off. There's more trailers, there's more stuff. If I'm being honest, I'll say what I said before about Marathon without getting too much into the weeds, in my opinion. I like the new look far better than the previous look before the whole art scandal thing happened. Mostly because the new look that they seem to be pulling with Marathon feels a lot less plasticky, more high sci-fi, rather than just, well, plastic. I swear, those old trailers are so plastic. They made my eyes bleed, is all I'm gonna say. Now my eyes only are mildly offended, which is, hey, an improvement. I'll take it what I can get. Again, that's been long revealed to have a release date for March 5th for 2026, so if you look at that, that's a thing. That said, there is other news that came with this presentation beyond the release date's re-announcement, and that is that they're doing what they're calling a server slam. Now, I have no idea what the heck that means in interpretation terms, but I can interpret what it means roughly. Basically, they're going to be doing something of an open beta. Now, they did this effectively, if memory serves, with Destiny 1 back in the day when it came out. Again, we're not going to get too much into the Destiny topic. That'll be for later in the show. But if memory serves, this is kind of what I'm interpreting it's going to be like. There's going to be an open beta for Marathon that's going to be running from February 26th to the release date, or at the very least before the release date of March 2nd. So, if you're interested in kind of popping into Marathon, seeing what it's all about, maybe snagging some goodies, which they have revealed, you'll be able to earn some exclusive stuff for taking part that you can bring over to the main game if you ever choose to get it later on, because this is a paid-for game. Then you can do that. I might jump in just to see how it is. Like I think I've said before with the show, I've played extraction shooters before. Never anything as hardcore as Marathon. Maybe it'll land for me, maybe it won't. Like I said, I've covered my own opinion on Marathon, Destiny, Bungie, yada 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 in previous shows, so go look at that if you're looking for my more in-depth opinion of all that whole debacle. But suffice to say, I do hope Marathon succeeds purely for the fact that it will end up helping Destiny in the long run. Because, frankly, if Destiny or Marathon fails tremendously, I can't see that ever reflecting good on Bungie or Destiny in general. Bungie is screwed. Bungie will be screwed one way or the other, but I think it'll only get worse for Destiny if Marathon fails. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. Now, how successful it can be, again, whole story for another day. And like I said, we didn't get any talk about any Destiny news, no roadmaps, no T3 releases, so the silence continues. The bout of silent treatment continues. Mark it on your calendar. Day, what is it now? Week
200?
Day 200, March 11th, 2029. The silence continues. But anyways. Yeah, that's kind of where we are with Marathon. Like I said, Server Jam, if you're interested in that, that'll be starting February 26th, so look into that. Like I said, maybe I will, maybe not. Let me see, we covered Beast, we covered Pragmata, we covered Rayman, we covered Pod Racing, we covered Marathon, we covered Ghost of Sparta, we covered Kenna. I think that brings me to the end of the list. Now, there was obviously more stuff that was shown in the presentation. Konami made a whole bunch of stuff that they released, starting it off with another Metal Gear collection, which, yeah, Metal Gear is an interesting topic to bring up for Konami, considering all they did between them and Kojima, and anyways. As if I say there's another collection coming out, so hey, if you didn't experience the old games, that'll be your opportunity to do so. At least other games that aren't in the previous Solid Snake collection. I think that's what they're called. Excuse me. So yeah, that'll be coming out. I do not remember what that is because I do not have it in my notes, but like I said, that's in there. Bunch of stuff, like I said, but we're not going to cover all of that because, like I said, this show is already 15 minutes, and I do not want to keep you all here for half an hour. So we'll just call it there. That's the state of play. Tell me what you think in the comments, honestly. Do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? Do you think they could have said more? Do you think they said too much? I don't know. What do you think about Marathon? I'll take anything.
What do you think?
What do you think? And yeah, that brings us to the end of our show. So unless Justin doesn't have any outro commentary,
Nope.
all right then. See y'all next week. Have a good one. Have a good day. And I'm going to go back to playing Star Rail. Bye-bye, everybody.
Good one.